Welcome to Workshopping Humanity. Today we're going to be talking about the Pixar films. The Pixar films are the reason that I got into film, the reason that I want to make films when I grow up. These are some of the most impactful and important movies to me of all time, and ranking them on a list is kind of like an impossible task, but I decided we're going to do it anyways. Just saw Elio, so that is going to be included on this list today. I just saw it a few hours ago. I'm going to be ranking it against movies that I've known for over 10 years plus. Is that quite fair to it? Probably not. But hey. Speaking of which things, this is my list, which means it is objectively right. And if you disagree with it, that means your opinion is wrong and you need to go back and you need to educate yourself on what true cinema actually is. Now, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Movies are cool because they reflect the time and place in our lives, and the Pixar movies certainly do that for me. There have been movies that I've dropped down lower and higher on this list throughout my life, depending on where I am at that particular moment. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about ranking a list like this. So today, this is just how the movies resonate with me right now in 2025, the Pixar canon. Let's get started. Starting off with number 29. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I kind of wanted to be a contrarian and pick something else as my number 29, but come on, it's Cars 2. It has to be Cars 2. Cars 2 is the worst Pixar movie because it means a lot. Cars 2 was kind of the death rattle for Pixar. Not that they've never made a good movie after that. They made several good movies after Cars 2 that we'll get into. But it's more so that it ended their hot streak that was their 2000s run. It is one of the best, if not the best run of movies a studio has ever had. And some people thought they were invincible. And Cars 2 was proof that they were invincible. And the interesting thing about this is, I think over time people have softened to it. Cars 2 kind of has some fans now. And it's definitely people who've grown up with the movie more. And to be honest with you, I don't think Cars 2 is like an awful movie. I don't think Pixar's just made a terrible animated movie. This movie is fine enough, but it is a Mater's Tall Tale episode. It kind of works for the Minion crowd, It's goofy gags. There is this kind of complicated spy espionage plot, and it has some things to say about environmentalism that would probably work well on like Test Track and Epcot, but like it's all kind of muddled in the end. It's just Larry the Cable Guy saying some gags for an hour and a half, and it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly entertaining. But as a Pixar movie, it just shows that they were capable of selling out. My number 28, I kept going back and forth on. I kept being like, I don't know. I think this one might be better. I think this one might be worse. My number 28 and 27 are just two movies I'm not a particular fan of, but I think I have to go Brave for my 28. Brave came out the year after Cars 2. It was not a great time to be Pixar. But going into it, Brave looked amazing. Those trailers looked like they were like a combination of Princess Mononoke and How to Train Your Dragon. There was this earthic feel to it that was so encapsulating through its trailers. It looked like Pixar was going for a different tone entirely, and they just did not nail it. Because this movie doesn't go into any of like the sociological or psychological components that make some of Pixar's earlier content so great. It feels like just a down the middle Disney fantasy film, but without the charm of something like Beauty and the Beast or Little Mermaid. Merida, I always found to be kind of an obnoxious, bratty character, and I don't care about her and what happens to her. And her relationship with her mom is something that has never rang true to me. And the fact that, she rides her mom through a forest is I don't know. It's bizarre. It's a bizarre creative choice, and it's something that I never thought really worked. Overall, it's just kind of a confused tonal mess. Not only that, we're getting a Pixar movie later on in this list that also has a mother-daughter dynamic that works exponentially better than this one, so it makes it look even worse in comparison. Next up, our 27, we've got Lightyear. Lightyear is probably one of the most confusing concepts for a movie ever made. It was the director saying, we're wanting to make the movie that Andy saw that made him love Buzz Lightyear. It was his favorite movie. And there's just no way that Andy saw this movie and was like, oh my gosh, this is my Star Wars. Because it's just way too mundane for this to be anyone's favorite obsession movie. This movie could have been a fun Star Wars spectacle. You did not have to make this movie nearly as deep or poignant as the other Pixar movies. You just had to make it interesting. And instead, it feels like this movie's trying to be a meditation on so many things. And it's kind of a meditation on nothing. The opening shot, as Buzz continues to try to do this mission correctly and sees the passes of time and seeing these people around him slowly like die and pass away, Pixar on their A game would have nailed that. That would have been such an emotional moment. And instead, in this movie, everything just kind of rings hollow and it feels confused. Not to mention, what they do with Zurg in this movie is baffling. It's one of the most baffling, confusing, creative choices I've ever seen in a movie. I appreciate what the director was trying to do here, which is why I decided to rank it a little bit above Brave. I think there's elements in this, I think there's moments in this that are compelling. And I also think that Socks is one of the greatest characters in animation, and it's so sad that he is delegated to this movie. That dude should be being sold like hotcakes, like the Minions at the parks. If he would have been in a better movie, he would be everywhere. Justice for Socks. But this movie overall is confusing. I don't know. Next up, number 26 is Monsters University. Now, this one also frustrates me on a story perspective. Kind of just at first look, it's a very generic, like, Animal House for kids story. I mean, if you've seen any college party movie, you know exactly how this movie is going. But connecting it to Monsters, Inc., this movie gives me a headache because the concept of this movie is Mike wanted to be a good scare, and the movie fundamentally goes, no, you can't be that because you were born to look funny. Therefore, you will be a sidekick to a guy who's treated you like crap throughout the whole movie. That gets one moment where he's finally like, all right, cool, I'll be good with you. You know, like, there's more development between the relationship of Freddie and Sam and iCarly than there is between Mike Wazowski and Sully in Monsters, Inc. Like, what is going on here? That ending part where they go into the real world through the door, some of that stuff's really thematically compelling, but it's a little too late since the rest of the movie has been just so by the numbers at that point. And once again, I think the overall message of the ending is kind of muddled and I think also kind of incorrect, which is why this one ranks significantly lower for me than it probably does for most people. I'm just not a fan of what this movie's trying to convey to its audience whatsoever. Next up, number 25 is The Incredibles 2. Now, interestingly enough, I think Incredibles 2 has a lot of the same issues that Cars 2 does. And I know some people are like, Brett, that's blasphemous. Okay? I don't think there is a large margin between quality between the two, as so many people do. The Incredibles, we'll talk about it later. It is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. It's a masterpiece. It's amazing. Brad Bird came back to make the sequel we are all anticipating, and he made something that had the levity of a Saturday morning cartoon. Actually, I wish it was as compelling as a Saturday morning cartoon. There was something so mundane about this movie, and I really don't understand what happened. Them having this movie take place literally, right after the first movie is such a baffling and dumb creative decision on the part of everyone involved. I mean it. Why on earth did you not age up these characters? There's so much to say about the aging process within this family dynamic. We see Jack go through puberty. Who knows what's going to happen there, you know? It's writes itself. And instead, we have something that, once again, feels like a TV show episode. And this is what we waited 12 years to see? I don't know. Incredibles 2. Just a baffling disappointment of a movie. Next up, number 24, we got Finding Dory. We're getting into the it's okay territory. Finding Dory is a complete, the safe bet, billion-dollar movie. Andrew Stanton directed it, and once again, he is one of our greatest directors of all time. So it's Nothing against him. He does a good job with the material, but the material itself is just pretty much a retread mostly of Finding Nemo, but has some really nice poignant moments with Dory, her finding her family, are emotional and poignant. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to say about it. It doesn't make me upset, but I'm just not enamored by it either. Next up, at number 23, is one that I'm actually surprised made it above some of these, and you guys probably are too, but that's going to be Cars 3, because Cars 3 is actually the compelling sequel to Cars that everyone wanted Cars 2 to be. This is the natural progression of the characters. While Lightning McQueen is so hyper obsessed with Doc Hudson's death, it's humorous in the movie and kind of scary. There's some compelling elements to this one. Is it a great movie? No. It's Cruz Ramirez, the car that ends up replacing Lightning in the movie, by far and away the most compelling character in the Cars franchise? Absolutely. Is there some great underdog things that has to say about growing up and facing your bullies? Yeah, I think so. And I think it's kind of compelling, good stuff for kids to hear. So I don't have any issues with Cars 3. I think it's a good movie. Next up, my number 22 is going to be Elemental. Elemental is the definition of an okay movie. Really pretty world building, stunning animation. I mean, sequences where just the visual imagery and the music and the characters alone just light up the screen in a fantastical way. But kind of the metaphor of this movie is so obvious and so blunt. And again, it is a movie where you're like, I know where this is going to go, and it follows every beat. It doesn't end up being about anything else. The best Pixar movies end up in one place, and you end the movie, and you're like, I'm surprised that's what the movie was actually trying to tell me. Nothing like that going on here. It is as straight down the middle as you could think. That being said, is it sweeping? Is it pretty? Is it romantic? Yeah, it is. You know, Elemental is a sweet movie, but it's nothing much more than that. My number 21 is actually one that people are surprised gets so high up on my list. A lot of people just immediately shoot Good Dinosaur down towards the bottom, down towards Cars 2 and Brave. I've always liked this movie significantly more than most people. I'm a big dinosaur guy, so I have a bias there. I do love a good, cute dinosaur. But also, I've always appreciated the animation in this one more than most people. The hyper cartoonish aesthetic of the characters juxtaposed with the hyper realistic backgrounds has been something that stuck out to my mind. Like, I've always thought that was a really cool aesthetic for a movie, and I think the two main characters are compelling, and I like the fact that most of the movie is just them kind of walking around hanging out. There's moments in this movie where only music and animation and environment tell the story. You know, some of the more poignant scenes in The Good Dinosaur kind of remind me of like a Terrence Malick movie. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but it really is just vibrant and colorful and beautiful in so many different ways. Is the story anything to write home about? No. But I think as an artistic exercise, there's a lot to take away from The Good Dinosaur that people don't appreciate enough. Number 20 is Onward. Now, Onward is kind of a frustrating movie for me. 2/3 of this movie are completely okay. Elemental, Good Dinosaur, material, tier. Two, you know, brothers connecting with the pants of their dad, which is a really weird sentence. Not doing anything incredibly new. The jokes you would expect, nothing really that stands out and screams Pixar until the last third of this movie. The ending of this movie and the sacrifice that the main character has to make to show his growth is one of the most brilliant things I've seen a Disney movie do in forever. I mean, this is what I asked Disney movies to do. The characters, in order to learn something, have to make a sacrifice. But that sacrifice will not feel that much to them because of what they've already learned. That's how a story goes. So many of the Disney movies lately don't have a good sacrifice. The characters stay exactly where they're at the very end of the movie. They learn a lesson, but they don't have to risk anything. And Onward gets that aspect of storytelling so well, and the ending of this movie makes me tear up every single time I watch it, and I'm like, why isn't the rest of the movie that good? That being said, Onward's still a really good movie. It's solid. It's solid. I just wish it was all as good as that last third. My number 19 is the newest Pixar movie, Elio. Yes, it is in theaters now, and I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really charming. About a little boy who wants to be abducted by aliens because his life on Earth is so dour. And I think that is such a charming and brilliant concept for a film, and the emotion writes itself in that. This movie, from a structural standpoint, is a lot of things that you've seen before. It's a mix of E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Flight of the Navigator. If you've seen like maybe 20 movies in your life, you're probably going to be able to predict what happens in Elio. There's no really interesting twists and turns in story, but aesthetically, this is one of the best things Pixar's ever made. Every single shot in this movie is a painting. The production design and the cinematography and every single element of this movie is immaculate. I want to see it in theaters again just because I want to be in that world again. The world building is as grand and miraculous as like the Pandora stuff in Avatar. I was completely blown away by it. And the compelling coming of age story of this kid was cute and charming. I cared about Elio. I wanted to see him be okay. So overall, this movie's a thumbs up for me. It was a really good time. The only reason it lands at number 19 is just because Pixar has a good filmography we're about to get into. There's a really good filmography. My number 18 is A Bug's Life. A Bug's Life was pretty much a remake of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai or even George Lucas's Star Wars. This is a movie about imperialism and people standing up against the machine. And you know what? If this movie came out today, politicians would call it woke nonsense for kids. But I guess since it came out in the 90s, it's completely fine, right? But this movie's conveying all the right messages that need to be heard. And it is a very, very likable movie. It's a very entertaining movie. It's not Pixar's most sophisticated film by any means, but I totally think it conveys its message really well. Yeah, that's what I gotta say about Bug's Life. Just good, solid entertainment. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. My number 17 is the first Cars. The first Cars kind of lands in this weird category because when it first came out, it was kind of known as like Pixar's black sheep because this movie was coming out between masterpiece after masterpiece after masterpiece. So if you release a 10 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, and then like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, you're going to be the outlier, right? And so people for a long time was like, well, you know, Pixar kind of had that hiccup with Cars, but they're back, which I don't think is a fair place to put Cars. Is Cars as revolutionary as some of the movies we're about to talk about in this video? Absolutely not. Again, very, very typical underdog story. You can probably predict where it's going by the end as well, but told really, really well. I love the fact that this movie takes its time for you to see environments and worlds. Route 66 looks so beautiful. The way that Radiator Springs is actualized, you can definitely see why they turned it into a theme park because you just want to go visit it. It's cozy, it reminds you of home. And this is a movie about, even if you're caught up in the race that is life, sometimes slow down and sniff the roses. And the final conclusion, the sacrifice that Lightning McQueen makes, gets me the same way that the Onward ending gets me every single time. But I think the rest of the movie is kind of stronger than Onward is. So I really enjoy Cars. It's a very good film. My number 16 was a really controversial film when it came out for some reason. But man, I really enjoyed Turning Red. This was directed by Domi Shi. She directed a short film called Bao for Pixar that played before Incredibles 2. That was the best part of that movie. Bao is my absolute favorite Pixar short of all time. I absolutely love it. I think it's thrilling and it's daring and it's provocative in the way that I want Pixar to be. And so is Turning Red. I don't like Turning Red as much as Bao. That being said, I don't like most things as much as I like the short film Bao. So that's fine. We're good. Turning Red is still a really compelling coming of age story. It's kind of a metaphor for a girl getting her period for the first time and kind of what that is reflected like, which is not an experience I had, but seeing it portrayed on screen in this way, I thought was really daring and evocative and is going to be very, very important to a generation of kiddos watching the movie. This movie has a conflict between a father and a daughter in a similar way to Brave, which I alluded to earlier in the video. But here, I've found both of the characters compelling. I cared about this little girl and wanted her to be okay and to find her way, and completely understood her frustrations with her mom. But her mom also was well meaning and just wanted the best for her, and has very much a narrow view about the way that she sees the world, because that's where she's been grown up to and that's where she's been adapted to. And the end of this movie is them meeting each other where they're at and figuring out that they both have to change and evolve, which I thought was really compelling, good character growth. When this movie first came out, people were like upset. They were like, man, this daughter is so, I mean, she's so evil to her mom. And it's like, and she's so, like, she doesn't listen to any discipline. This is so bad for kids. And I'm like, have these people watched The Little Mermaid lately, where Ariel sells her voice to a sea demon for a boy when she's 16 years old? Like, she doesn't do anything like that. She's just a little girl wanting to experience the world. I really do think the parents upset about Turning Red were upset because it was calling them out, and it should be. So there's my opinion. Turning Red, great movie. My number 15 is the sequel to Inside Out, Inside Out 2. I kind of dogged on a lot of the sequels earlier on in this list for kind of being unnecessary. I think Inside Out 2 is the perfect example of a necessary Pixar sequel that does what I wish The Incredibles 2 did. Riley grows up. I think anxiety in this movie is one of the most fascinating and compelling Pixar characters of all time. She's kind of a anti-hero villain through most of it. She's definitely the antagonist of the film, but you completely understand her point of view and kind of how she's trying to navigate Riley through life. And for all of us who have had issues with their anxiety complex, for everyone who's in fight or flight all the time, every single day, this movie's going to resonate. And it has a moment, a particular wordless moment in the control board towards the end where Joy's pulling anxiety away from it that literally like chokes me up. I mean, just thinking about it right now, I'm just like, oh, it's so good. It's cinema. Again, the reason this only being number 15 on my list is crazy. I just love all of these movies. I don't know what to tell you. My number 14 is Toy Story 4. A lot of people hate Toy Story 4 for some reason. Now, this movie was widely acclaimed when it came out, but a lot of people have issues with Toy Story 4 because essentially they think it retcons Toy Story 3, and it really doesn't. The original Toy Story trilogy is its own trilogy. This really does feel like an epilogue to it. Now, we haven't really seen Woody's story entirely play out. And now we have. We have seen Woody's story play out. We've seen the fact that he has to figure out what's going to be the best for him. And if he's not being recognized or he's not fulfilling his purpose, just sitting in a dusty dresser, then it's time for him to find what his next goal is, his next life ambition is. I think there's nothing wrong with that, and that's actually a really good thing to convey to a family audience. And I think people who are so strongholded to the original trilogy need to understand that things are allowed to adapt and change, and that's a part of life. And that's actually a really nice thing that the movie is trying to say. I also believe that Gabby in this movie, very much like Anxiety, is the antagonist, but her resolution and her fulfillment as a character is something else I think is just so compelling and just something that only the best of Pixar can do. So I really enjoy Toy Story 4. I think it's a great film. My number 13, I'm going to get killed for. It's this low. I'm so sorry. I love Coco. I think Coco's a great movie. It's a wonderful meditation on death. It's a wonderful meditation on family. Remember Me is an amazing song. It's gorgeous. I can't say really anything bad about it. All I can say is I grew up with some of these movies more, and some of these movies resonate with me a little more at this moment of my life, which is why Coco's only at 13. But it's a great film. I mean, it's an amazing movie. My number 12 is the first Inside Out, which is probably higher for a lot of other people too. I think Inside Out 2 go back and forth which one I like more. I think this is a really excellent film. Inside Out 2 kind of furthers some of the themes more than this one, but also this one's so original and innovative and new, and Pete Docter's voice and direction in this is so great. I mean, he's making elevated kind of like Charlie Kaufman for kids type of thing with this. And it's so fun. And I also think it articulates the emotions that kids have in their brain so well. There's a reason why I think it's pretty much just considered a classic at this point. I mean, this is considered one of the best family movies of the last 10 to 15 years. I mean, and there's a reason why. It's an excellent piece of filmmaking. You cannot go wrong with Inside Out. Again, it's getting difficult, guys. These are all amazing movies. And you're gonna say this again with my number 11. You're gonna be like, Brett, that didn't even make the top 10. Please, just let me explain myself. I absolutely love the first Toy Story film. It is one of the most revolutionary movies in cinema, not just animation. In cinema, it is one of the most important movies ever made. Some of these movies later on a story perspective, move me more than the first Toy Story. That being said, the first Toy Story is an incredible story. Buzz's arc of him figuring out that he's a toy is devastating. The existential spiral that he goes through in this just elevated CG animated movie is so interesting and so meaty and so poignant. Toy Story is a great film. That I know that's a shocker. You're shocked that I said that Toy Story is a great film. I'm the first person on the internet to say that Toy Story is a great movie, but it's a great movie. We're moving on to the next one. My number 10 is Monsters Inc. Like I stated, Monsters University is a movie that really bothered me because of how much I love Monsters Inc. So I tried to like blink it out of my brain. I love Mike and Sully as a duo. They are wonderful. They are my friends. They're my pals. They're so likable here. All the different designs of all the monsters are great. It's one of my earliest movie-going experiences I can remember, being in an empty theater and kind of being sold on movies, honestly. Like, this was my favorite movie for a long time. And Monsters Inc. was also something that, like, kind of led me to love creatures and monsters and stuff. You can see some of the stuff in my background, like, that's been a big part of who I am as a person, is liking silly creatures on screen. And that was definitely a starting point of that love. So there's a lot that ties into Monsters Inc. and why it's a special movie to me. I think it's a wonderful film. My number 9 is going to be WALL-E. Now, WALL-E is one that's interesting for me because I've always kind of struggled more with the back half of this movie just because of how much I love the first half. The first half of this movie is like maybe top 20 movies of all time material for me. It's very much Charlie Chaplin in outer space, minimal dialogue, cinematography from Roger Deakins to make it look like it's all shot through a 70s camera, Hello Dolly music needle drops, you know? It's all gorgeous, and it's able to tell this beautiful love story between these two robots. And just the first 30 to 40 minutes of this movie are just spectacular. Once they get on the ship, it's still a great film. And every single time I rewatch WALL-E, the stuff on the ship gets better. Even the line the captain says where he's like, I don't want to survive. I want to live. It's like, it's silly as a kid. And then, you know, the more I watch that, the more and more that line is incredibly tragic. And there is stuff in this movie that is kind of scary to think about if that could ever become our reality. And we get closer to our utopia looking something like this every single day. But ultimately, WALL-E is a thoughtful and poignant meditation on not only love, but the human experience in general. And it's a really powerful film. My number 8 is The Incredibles. Absolutely love Brad Bird. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. That is why The Incredibles 2 still frustrates me so much to this day. But we're not talking about that. The Incredibles is a perfect superhero movie. This movie is still one of the best superhero movies of all time. It's top 5. Everything it gets right about the characters and the dynamics is great. This movie's hard to beat. It has one of the greatest family dynamics in film ever conceived. Even the the beginning of this movie being about like plaintiffs, about an attempt of suicide, about capitalism, about the rat race, about it's about all these like kind of heady, really adult subject matter, but still totally works as an entertaining movie for kids as well. But it's a really thematically deep movie that you really can't see Disney pitching these days. This was definitely a movie that was pitched because Pixar owned the world and they can make whatever movie they wanted to, and they pushed the boundaries with this one, and it paid out in exponential ways. I mean, The Incredibles is just riveting. Next up on this list is a movie that is probably more towards the middle in most people's Pixar ranking, but this is a movie that really, really spoke to me, and it's one I find to be incredibly underrated, and that is Luca. Luca is an incredibly poignant coming of age tale that really, really hit the right chord with me when I saw it. It's a movie that I needed to see when I was younger. And that's kind of the thing that I go back to with some of these newer releases is like, how would this worked with me when I was younger? Because Luca is about a kid who doesn't feel like he is comfortable within his own skin at all times. And he's seeing the outside world for the first time. And there's adversaries to that. One of the most thought provoking things about Luca is the villain character. A lot of Disney movies have a villain character that are either a twist villain or they have a redemption arc. The villain in Luca is just a bratty kid that has absolutely no redeemable qualities, who ends the movie still as bratty as he was. And the and thesis of this movie is the fact that Luca's going to run into people that don't accept him, that don't love him, that are very hostile towards him, but he's also going to find those people who are in his wheelhouse. And man, isn't it worth it? Isn't it worth it to find those people who are by your side? And that is the thing about this movie that chokes me up every single time I see it, because I really do think for all of us people pleasers out there, we need to see this movie, and we needed this movie. And the ending resolution, him going off to school on the train, that Dan Romer score, it's cinema. It's so gorgeous. And again, the way that this movie is told feels a lot more, I don't know, like a Studio Ghibli movie than a Pixar movie, but I love that change of pace. I really do. And I'm really excited for the director's next film. It's the painting movie with the black cat. The man can do no wrong for me right now. He also did the Pixar short La Luna, which was great. But Luca, terrific movie. For people who are saying that, like, Pixar within the last, I don't know, 10 years have lost it or whatever, really haven't been seeing all the Pixar movies. Because a few of these coming up, movies have come out within the last 5 years, including my number 6, which is Soul. Soul is elevated Inside Out. Pete Docter really did take Inside Out and was like, but what if Inside Out was about a struggling artist trying to find his way and him actually getting the thing that he wanted and figuring out it's not what he wanted. And this movie was actually a perfect double feature with another movie that came out that year called Sound of Metal, which is about a man who had to figure out what his role was outside of just being an artist. Because a lot of us who are aspiring artists, that's all we see ourselves as, is the things that we create. But there's other things in life to appreciate, like the taste of pie and the sound of piano and the water going to our toes on a beach. And that's kind of what this movie is celebrating. It's just life. Everyday living is important enough, and sometimes that's all you can hold on to. And I thought that was a really beautiful and profound statement for Pixar to make, especially since this movie came out in 2020. We all kind of needed that reminder at that time. Soul is very much Pixar's own kind of retelling of It's a Wonderful Life in some regards, and I really loved it. Top 5. This is like 10 out of 10 material. These are some of the greatest films I've ever seen. Really hard to rank, but we'll go with my number 5, which is Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 for me is almost as revolutionary as the first Toy Story, but is a story that I resonate with more. Jessie as a character is so beautiful, and her story of PTSD through abandonment is something that was really challenging. I mean, I think shocked everyone when that movie came out, how challenging that performance and that character is. I mean, Joan Cusack is amazing. And this whole movie is just, it's so funny, it's so clever, it's so well animated, it's so sharply written, it's emotional. It is just the perfect sequel in every conceivable way. There's a reason why people call it The Empire Strikes Back of the Toy Story trilogy. It's just profound and amazing. But this isn't the last time we're going to be talking about Toy Story, so I'll leave it there. My number 4 is Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is a movie that has only grown on me the older I've gotten. This movie is the perfect example of you thinking it's going to be about one thing and it being about another thing. When this movie first starts, we do see that Marlin's kind of this helicopter parent because of something incredibly tragic that happens within the first 10 minutes, which to this day is still one of the most devastating sequences of film I've ever seen in my entire life. But that's neither here or there. But this movie ends up being about the dad. Now, Nemo does have to learn that maybe his dad is right about some things, but also this is an incredible arc for Marlin, who's having to realize that he can't just hold on to his son forever and protect him forever from the world, or else his son won't live in the real world. The scene where Dory's like, "Why would you promise Nemo that nothing happened to him? Then nothing's gonna happen to him. That's not a fun life for Nemo." That entire sequence is so poignant. And again, it does really feel like the directors here, who were new dads at the time, figuring this all out for themselves and writing a script about it. And in result, we get one of the greatest films ever made. I mean, Finding Nemo is it's a masterpiece. There's literally like not a single second of this movie that I would change. Like we're in perfect territory right now. Which is where we're getting into our number 3, which is Up. Now, Up shares this really weird space for a lot of people. Up was a really big deal when it came out. It did the festival circuit. It got nominated for Best Picture, and it was the first animated movie to do that since Beauty and the Beast in 1991. And Up came out in 2009. So there was a big gap between that, and it was a really big deal when it came out. Everyone talks about the first 10 minutes of Up and how it's one of the best sequences of any movie ever. And I agree. The first 10 minutes of Up is just perfection, best sequences of film ever. And does Up ever get as good as the first 10 minutes? No, it doesn't. But that really does undermine the rest of this movie, which is still like a 10 out of 10. This is a great adventure movie with really, really surreal, silly elements that are still able to be incredibly impactful and didactic into the world that they've created. I really don't know how Pete Docter did it. There's a lot of really, really heavy material in this movie, but then there's also dogs flying in airplanes, and it all feels germane to the actual story. It's an incredible piece of writing. I really don't even know how he pulled it off. Every time I see Up, I think, this is a high wire act. And if you do one misstep, you completely ruin the foundation of this movie, and they don't. It's so airtight, solid. And once again, there's just moments throughout the movie. There's a specific moment with Russell telling Carl that like the little things in life are the things he kind of remembers the most about his parents. And it's just, that stuff's really emotional and grounded as well. I just miss. I think Pixar is at its best when it's talking about real life stuff. And it has really dark, deep material in it, but it's able to convey it in a fun, vibrant way. And Up is the perfect example of that. My number 2 is Toy Story 3. Yeah, Toy Story 3 is my favorite Toy Story movie, which I know that is kind of contested at this point, but I'm a Toy Story 3 person. The ending of this movie, Andy letting go of his toys to go off to college, is one of the best representations of letting go and growing up that has ever been portrayed on screen, and everyone's talked about it to death, but it's so good. But the rest of this movie, once again, is just immaculate. This is one of the best prison escape movies of all time. Every single piece in the screenwriting adds up so well. There's so many moving pieces and parts that are so well realized. All the characters really have their moment to shine. They're all so likable, and you're rooting for all of them. And the bits are so funny. Oh, the bits. And the way that it even shows tyrannical power and how people can get so full of themselves. I think Lotso is one of the most well-actualized villains in any movie I've ever seen, the Lotso Huggin' Bear, because you kind of understand his motivation at a certain point, but realize just how far gone he's gotten. I mean, Toy Story 3 is an astounding piece of filmmaking that concluded what is one of the best trilogies of film with the Toy Story franchise. But my number 1 Pixar film, which is also my number 1 movie ever made, is Brad Bird's Ratatouille. This movie has meant so much to me throughout my entire life. The ending monologue that Anton Ego gives about the restaurant is my favorite sequence of film of all time. For me as a critic, it's something I go back and think about a lot. are we kind of discrediting the new because we don't understand it yet? And should we let those new artists into the kitchen? But also, as an aspiring artist, how much I feel for Remy and how much I feel like I am Remy in a lot of ways. Where I feel like sometimes when I'm on a set for a film, I am the rat in the kitchen. Like I have all these ideas, but I'm not being respected. I'm being put to the corner. People think I'm kind of gross. And it's the story of having to figure out how to find your voice and to get through to a system until someone finally gives you that moment of recognition. And the moment where Remy is sitting out looking over the France sunset as he reads the review and it says the finest chef in France, and he realizes that he finally achieved the thing he wanted to do despite being on the bottom of the totem, is something that I'm going to get choked up about thinking about right now, because it's the most aspirational thing I've ever seen in film. And once again, for this entire film to be based around a movie where a rat is a chef, which is an incredibly weird and bizarre concept, and for it to be this beautiful is astounding. It's astounding. It's an astounding piece of filmmaking. I really don't see any time soon where a movie is going to be better than this for me. I mean, this is just my favorite movie ever, and it is my favorite Pixar movie. There you go. Those are the rankings from Pixar. What is your ranking? They're all going to be very different. Comment them down below and let me know what you guys want to see next on this channel, and I'll see you later.